Hi, and welcome to another video. We are going to install Ruby on Rails on the new MacBook Pro M1, 16 gigs, 1 terabyte. Here we go. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use the Go Rails setup to install Ruby on Rails onto our M1. But the first thing we need to do is to clone our terminal. So you can, I already did this, but I'll just kind of walk you through. Right click and select duplicate, and then you can rename the terminal. So I've renamed mine Terminal Rosetta, and then you can change the info settings to make sure it opens during Rosetta. So that is important. So the first thing I'm going to do is install Homebrew. So if you just go to brew.sh and grab that command into your Rosetta terminal, it should easily install Homebrew with no issues. Okay, so that's installed. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to install Ruby, and we're going to use Homebrew to install it. So we're going to grab this brew install command and paste it into our Rosetta terminal, and that should install the latest build of Ruby 2.7.2. So we're going to let that go. Okay, so that installed. The next thing we're going to do is to set the Ruby global variable to 2.7.2. I have some issues here, so we will take care of this later in the video. Right now it's running the default Ruby 2.6.3. I couldn't figure it out why, but I will explain why later in the video. So at this point we are going to set up Git. We're going to move on, and you're going to need a GitHub account, so you have to create one if you don't have one. Just go to github.com and register for an account there. I've already got one, so I'm just setting up the global variables in GitHub so that anytime we build apps, we can easily push and pull from Git. So I'm setting up my username, my email, and all of that good stuff. We will kind of blow through this and move on after. Okay, we've set up our SSH in GitHub and all that good stuff. I didn't show you that because I don't want to give you the key publicly. So now we'll install Rails, and we will copy the gem install Rails, and we've got an error. So this is the error related to the 2.6.0 that I had showed you earlier, and we're going to fix it now. So here's where I found the solution. The Stack Overflow thread that I'll link. You have to set these add these two things to your bash profile, and it should take care of it. Now this will let us set the global variable to actually 2.7.2, which I typed in wrong the first time, and now we're setting it to 2.7.2. So that's ready to roll, and we can see as we ruby-v that we're now running 2.7.2. So we'll go back in. I'm going to bookmark that. We'll go back in and we will reinstall Rails. And this time it should run. I'm going to make sure I install Rails with the Node document flag. It saves you quite a bit of time on the installation. Removes the documentation. And so that we're going to let that run. And building native extensions can take quite a while. So we're going to fast forward. Okay, so Rails is now installed correctly. We're going to do the rehash and make sure that the version is correct. And it looks like it is 6.0.3.4. So now we're going to move on to installing a database. You can choose between MySQL and Postgres. We're going to use Postgres here and do the brew install Postgres command, and that should install the Postgres database. So we're going to let that go, and I will fast forward this part. Okay, so Postgres installed correctly. There is a final step that you might have to do for certain versions of Mac OS. So I'm just going to run this and see if I need to do it. If I can copy it, there it goes. And asking me for my password. And it looks like, okay, it's looking for Xcode, which I don't have installed. And I believe you need Xcode to run Postgres, at least on some configurations. So I'm going to quickly download this, and then I'll just get the Xcode download started because it's a huge file. And then I will just skip to the next step and see if we can't get this thing going while this downloads. So I'm going to download that, and we're going to skip to the next step and just actually create our first Rails app. And it looks like it is working and installing all of the gems, but it did show an error. Oh, we need Node.js. So one of the things that we'll have to download now is Node.js. So we're going to go ahead and just go to the link provided and download that. And we're just going to choose the Mac OS installer, and that should quickly run us through the installation process. So I will, I think, fast forward through this part as well. Okay, so that's done installing, and we're going to jump back into our terminal. And we are also going to run the Rails Webpacker install. And it looks like we've run into an error here. And let's see what is going on. Let's try to run a bundle install, see if that does anything. Could not locate gem file. Okay, so okay, we must have missed this part. So let's set the actual database for this app to use to Postgres. I don't think, I'm just scrolling back to see if I'd run that. I don't think I have, so I'm going to run that right now. Okay, so we're going to run that. And I think I called it my first app, and so we're going to set the database to Postgres. It said it could not locate, oh wait, no, that's overwrite, yes. So we're going to overwrite these files, just make sure. Yeah, I think that's right. So we're going to overwrite, and we're going to do yes again. And it should, yeah, it's grabbing the Postgres gem, and it should download that just fine here. Okay, so Yarn is not installed, so we also need Yarn to run Postgres, I guess. So let's download that. We can use Homebrew to download or install Yarn. So go ahead and do that. And I'll fast forward us through this as well. Okay, so Yarn successfully installed. Now we're going to change directories into the new app we created. And to do that, we'll cd into my first app. And we're going to run the Rails server. And let's see if we can't. No database error, and that is probably because we have to set our database username as our Mac OS username in the config file, as noted in the notes here on the Go Rails tutorial. So let's jump into our config file and into database.yml, and we're going to go and find the database username right there at the bottom, and we're going to replace it with our OSX user count name. So for me, mine is my full name, Chris Lamb. And so I will go ahead and change the username to Chris Lamb. I'm going to save that now. And now I am going to make sure there's no other places to change it. And I am going to create the database, rakedb::create. That worked. It created a database for my first app. Now I'm going to run the server and we're going to cross our fingers. Let's see if we can get the server running. I'm going to quit and reopen it. CD into my first app, and here we go. Let's see if we can't get Rails. Yay, you're on Rails. So we got Ruby on Rails running on the M1. Everything is running smoothly. I think the first thing I'll do before I end this video is to create a scaffold of a user in the database just to see if it works. So let's see. Rails G scaffold user, we're going to give them a variable called name and a variable called email. And I am going to generate that scaffold. And that worked, and that was created correctly. I'm going to rake the database to migrate that, and that created the user's scaffold. And let's test it out, see if my name and email fields work. We're going to create the user. Yep, there's the show field, there's the index field, and we can edit, and we can, let's see if we can destroy. Yep, everything is working. So there you have it. Pretty straightforward. Nothing really that weird that I ran into. Following Go Rails. Really the only thing was the Ruby version, but other than that, that was pretty much it.